boys. Cheers.
Cheers, gents. Cheers.
Thanks for having me on the show, boys.
Mr. Joey, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, anytime.
It's fun to have you over. Welcome back to Hold My Beer. Today we're hosted with Mr. Joey. He's a great dude, but a lot of background on fighting and other conversations that we're going to be picking up here. First of all, I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. We spent 2.5 hours trying to get this rig going, so that was interesting.
It was a struggle, man. Mm-hmm. Struggle.
You have to do what, 4 drives out to get everything?
Finally we got it done, man.
We're still figuring things out. Yeah.
Well, good thing I'm not doing it because we would have been never getting anywhere.
You hooked us up with the beer, so Hold My Beer.
Yeah.
Mine is just water.
They don't know that. You shouldn't have said that.
Right. Mr. Joey, how long have you been doing MMA, boxing?
So I primarily started back when I was a kid in high school strangely enough with my mom and my good friend Kyle Nelson, Tim Harrow. He was a champion out west in kickboxing, and Kyle actually fights in the UFC now.
Oh, nice.
He's doing pretty decent. He has a good career going, but it's been a long road. And then I switched to jiu-jitsu in 2016. So it's been 6-7 years now.
You got the cauliflower ear from jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, grappling.
That's how you know not to mess with the boy.
That happened in one of your more recent competitions, right?
So last this one here, the World Masters, I had a bit of swelling going on, and then it finally got choked, and the pressure just finally blew up. And then I had to start with the draining process. I have a video on YouTube of me actually draining. I can show you sometime. It's pretty.
You should link that down if you want to watch it. We should link that down.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll just show you. It's called draining cauliflower or something, and it's pretty nasty. Even if you just pull up a random video of someone else doing it, it's pretty gross. And then you're supposed to actually clamp a magnet onto it after.
Yeah. To compress it.
Yeah, but I never. It got too annoying, so I never.
What do it die?
Yeah, it's just draining cauliflower ear.
Because I know that there's a common misconception that cauliflower ear is caused by trauma, like a punch.
Can be.
Which is, it could, but most likely it's chokes from my understanding.
Is that you?
No.
It looks like.
But it's the same process, man.
Let's look at that guy.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just sticking the syringe up.
Yeah, it's literally like
Is that how
a
you
sack of liquid.
That's how I did it.
Is it pus?
It's blood, in kind of like a
plasma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like more run down blood.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I took 4 of those size needles out of mine.
Woo! Oh man, must be painful.
It's a process, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good to have. I mean, if I saw you down the street and you give me a funny look, I'll walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try to challenge you.
Most people who are involved in any type of martial art or anything are usually actually very friendly people, very polite, because they're kind of nothing to prove kind of personality. There's confidence usually in those people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're on different caliber as a human being. Why change? Yeah, that makes sense.
One thing I've learned is that it's a person like me who's never been into a physical altercation or close fights, close distance fights, and trying to learn from you guys. And I'm more comfortable and confident. It's not that I have to prove to someone. It's that I'm just comfortable. If something happens, I know what to do. Yeah. And most of the times, people who have never fought, they don't know what to do. And that's the biggest issue. Because if you don't know what to do, you're just fucked. Right?
Oh, yeah,
you're just fucked. And I would recommend everybody to do anything related to martial arts, boxing, jiu-jitsu, anything.
I think it makes better people.
Yeah.
Right. Go get punched in the face. Go experience that. I know. Yeah. I know guys that have never been punched in the face in their life. Yeah. And when they get in a fight, they get clipped. They freak out. That's half the battle, right?
It's funny you said that. When I remember back, I used to be into the bodybuilding scene, and I thought I was invincible. I could run through a brick wall, and I'm gonna see red, and everybody's gonna hit the floor. It's it's a humbling experience when you have like you join a gym and you have 16-year-old kids or even younger and chicks beating the crap out of you. It's like, wow, I needed that. I think lots of people need that actually.
Right.
Yeah, it built up your character, man. I've seen a bunch of like big guys who have big muscles. They come in for the first time and then they see getting choked from like a smaller dude and they don't show up again because it hurts their egos, right? They never show up again. They're like, fuck this. Yeah.
We've seen a couple of guys that would show up for a couple of events when we train and go out, and they call it a day.
They don't show up again.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Kind of to take things on the MMA take, developments have been happening in a very popular case here with Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
I was just kind of interested in hearing your guys' opinions. Just to recap on what was going on, Andrew Tate was accused of very serious charges involving...
Is that trafficking? Trafficking females? Is that what that is?
Yeah. Trafficking, there was an assault as well in there.
Assault?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys watched Andrew Tate online before, but he has that persona, and I'm going to call it a persona because everybody has an online persona.
Of course. Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that that's how he walks and talks it like day to day. But he's very, very macho. Like he treats women like a part of his property or day to day events. Like he has that antagonistic persona around him. And when he started getting popular, that female came out and made the accusations, whether they're true or not, that's not the point. But now he got released, and I don't think he has any of those charges that stuck to him. They
didn't have any charges, no. They didn't have enough evidence, and now he's on house arrest for another month. But the thing is, they kept him for 3 months, and they didn't have any evidence. And so, according to the human rights, you can only keep any person for 30 days in any country, right? Any country.
Romania?
It was Romania, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know where it was.
So they basically broke the human rights rules if it was true that you can only keep a person for 30 days. And if you don't find any evidence, you have to let them go, right?
Right.
And it's been 3 months he was in jail, and then now another month for house arrest. So that's kind of crazy, man.
That's wild. I kind of heard about that, and I know he's a big influencer and a lot of, like, he really stands up for, like, the male side of things. I've heard some of his talks, like, back and forth with different people. And the people who hate them or people who attack them, they say, this guy is a misogynistic because he treats women as his property and dictates the terms. And you have to look that the modern world, especially the Western culture, women are like more, they have freedom and they are more of an individual and they can make their own decisions. But when you look at the traditional women or the countries where they still have those traditional values where the woman stays home, take cares of the family, and man is the one who dictates the term because he's the one who's making the money. So he's putting out all those resources in how to make the money and how the house runs, right? I think you're touching on like the more traditional roles of like the male and female people here. And I see like it's slowly what you're getting at is like things have changed so much that now we're coming to a time where there was like, that saying, I don't need no man. Yeah. Like I'm my own queen or whatever kind of thing. And like, I'm all for that. Like, if you like for human beings making their own way, anybody, any male, female, whatever. But like things have definitely changed because the way things are going now, like you don't need, like things are less laborious maybe from like when my grandfather was around, like, cause like you need to be a big strong man to go out and plot
exactly right. Like the standards have changed over everything. Like I think that's the point that you're trying to drive home here. Like you said, women were expected maybe like 100 years ago or 50 years ago or whatever. Women were expected to stay home, take care of the kids, cook, and all that jazz. Men were expected to be like hardy, no emotion, go to war when you need to, like all that kind of stuff. And now we're kind of living in an era where it's more individualistic. Yeah. On both sides. Like I feel like now even with guys that are more expressive, maybe not as far as we want things to be, which is, it is what it is, but things have changed. And whether Andrew or Mr. Tate here was taking things, and I think the only thing that they really had on him was the video with him with that female, but it turned out to be like a sexual kink between them. And the female, the one female, so the Andrew was the one who was recording the video, and it was like a kinky
sexually. It was in the bed, right? So he
Wow.
slapped this chick, right?
Yeah.
But that chick who got slapped was the one came out. She was like, yeah, that we had a kink and we that was it. Like he didn't assault me or nothing, and yeah, that's it. But they didn't have anything about it. But like Joy said, it's about masculinity, and all from what I understand, all he is saying is just be a man who a woman can rely on, who like his friends can rely on, who's
Yeah.
like emotionally and mentally strong, even physically strong. He's pushing. He's like, if you don't go to the gym or if you don't do push-ups, like that's the first thing to be a good man, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
have to be
provider.
physically. Yeah, exactly. You have to be a provider. And if you're not physically strong, you can't be mentally strong.
No.
Yeah.
We're definitely built differently, like as creatures. Like everybody is different, and obviously the hormones and all that fun stuff plays differently in each of our characters. On a guy's sense, yes, 80% of guys should be on that provide, protect, be there, and be a support.
Yeah.
And his message does make sense, but obviously sometimes the truth just stings too much in certain perspectives.
Funny thing, you know how women say that it's not them, it's their hormones because they get dramatic and this is me talking in general sense. I'm not pointing at any specific person, but like women say, oh, it's my hormones or it's my periods that's affecting my moods and that's why I'm so dramatic. But men doesn't say that it's their hormones because being aggressive is like you have more testosterone, right? That's hormone, right? Basically. So men being aggressive, and that's the thing with that's what Andrew Tate was saying. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to kill someone. You don't have to punch someone, but you have to have, because as males, as us men, we have those hormones and we don't blame those hormones, right? We take responsibility of those hormones. If we punch someone in the face, it's our fault, right? It's not my hormone's fault, right? Yeah, and then the social media or the current media is saying that that's toxic. Being aggressive is toxic. It's not toxic. It's just your hormones. It's natural to males.
I heard something like that. It was a Steven Spielberg or one of those famous Hollywood directors saying like toxic masculinity. Is that what he was saying? Like testosterone is like toxic masculinity, and like it's like what do you mean? Like if this is the thing, if you don't have like someone who's a good person with skills and is masculine, you're gonna have the bad people making everybody look bad. You need a strong man to keep those other weak men in check. Like they need to understand that you need a macho man here and there to keep people in line.
And the hormone itself is something that has been selected for over thousands of years. It's not just a thing that we get to decide on. The fact that we have testosterone that's being produced at the numbers that are being produced at, it's not a fluke. It's a scientific thing. Back, and I know we're not living in the caveman days, but that's where it started from. We needed to be able to fight, but you're not going to get the pregnant human to go fight your battles. It's going to have to be the one that's not getting pregnant.
Yeah.
It just happened to be male and female in this case, but realistically speaking, you can't have the crossover effect, and it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, back then I'll be putting my life at danger, but you keep my offspring safe. And maybe that mentality is frowned upon now because we're not being chased by saber-toothed lions or whatever.
Yeah. But the thing is, male and female roles have been going for thousands of years, but lately, just about 80 years from now, like those things have been changing. So if you say testosterones are the ones that making men aggressive and it's a bad thing, 50 years ago, from this point, we had more testosterone and they have dropped 50%. So those guys were all toxic. If you say that having testosterone is toxic, right? Yeah. So that means like our grandparents were toxic, but I don't see they're still married. My grandparents, look at them; they're still married. My grandpa got married when he was like 19 or something, and it's been 50 years. They're still married. Wow. And I don't see my grandma saying, "Oh, you're putting pressure on me, or you are forcing me to this and that." She always, and it's not like control thing. She just naturally listens to to her husband, right? And that's the thing. That's how it should be. That's what traditional means, right?
Yeah, I think strong females are very great people. I grew up with strong women in my life. My mom was very high up in her workplace, and she works very hard, and my stepmother was very authoritative. Even for instance, like I think I've always been about the yin and yang balance of life. You need each other to coexist. My wife's a very strong person. I can never bear children. I'm going to be honest with you. I can imagine what these women go through to even have a child. I respect women deeply, and I do believe that every strong man needs a strong woman too to have it back.
Yeah.
It's a partnership, right? You
100%.
need that. You need those opposite qualities.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
patience.
Yeah.
I find women are a little more patient. I don't know if that's a true thing, but you ask my wife. I lose my patience a little quicker than I'd like, and I've been working on that. But
Yeah.
it's just how I was raised, and but it's like I said, like I'm all about that balance in life, and there's strong women are very good to have in your life too.
100%.
But do you
Set an
think?
example.
Do you think having like being short circuit or getting angry pretty quick? I used to think that it's a bad habit, and my parents and my families, they all used to say that it's a bad thing to get mad like so often. But if you look at it, it's not a bad thing. It serves you sometimes, right? That's why you have it. And it's not just one or two people. I think most of the men have short circuit. They get mad pretty quick, and that's just built into you. And you have to have that qualities to survive in this world. You can't be like, oh yeah, if you say so, then we will do it your way. But like if there's an altercation, the first thing you need is disagreement. You have to you should be able to fight that person, right? Because if any argument escalates, it's gonna be physical, right? And women can be physical, but if you take a woman and let's say Joan Jones, the strongest woman and the strongest man, who do you think will win?
And I mean, and that's because we're built differently. It doesn't have to do much with abilities.
Yeah.
And I think every man has the ability to get angry quickly. Not necessarily that should be your habit. And I think that's the difference here.
Yeah.
If the circumstances show itself, like if somebody attacks my family in my house,
Yeah.
and I need to protect my family, I'm gonna get angry quickly. But if I'm driving down the road and somebody cuts me off and I still use the same level of the switch of turning into angry right the same way, you're talking about the ability to fight somebody to the point you kill them to protect the people you love, versus a road rage, like you're just upset. I don't think we can equate the two about necessarily going to an angry stage right away. I think it's a good distinction that we have the ability to, but we shouldn't do that often, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I was Jordan Peterson. He said, you should be a monster. And what does that mean is you should have that rage inside you, but you should be a good man is the one who can control that rage.
Yes.
So you have all those qualities of a person who can be dangerous, who can kill a person if it was a fight, right? He shouldn't be a coward, but a good man is the one who can control that anger within himself.
Yes, 100%.
And the other thing is the biggest thing between men or between friends or between co-workers is respect, especially with men, because I don't think women care that much, but for men, respect is the biggest thing. And the only thing that's holding between you and me not fighting is respect, because we know if something goes sideways, we can fight. And the only thing holding us behind is like respect. You respect me, I respect you, and that's what's keeping the situation down low, right?
Yeah.
And his perspective, I like his perspective, man. He helps the young people to be more masculine, which means you can have that passion, you can have that rage, but you have to know how to control that thing, right?
Oh, agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's an interesting fella. Hopefully they get that sorted out, because if he didn't do anything wrong and he's being like wrongfully held in a prison somewhere, that's pretty bad, man. Like, I don't know the full circumstance. I'm sure like all truth will come to light eventually, like most situations do. But I guess time will tell. Like,
It's definitely a time thing, and kind of to add a little bit of oil on the fire here. People took that and they started connecting it to other fighters. And we can talk about whether fighting as a career, if you may, involves people that are naturally born with higher testosterone or more aggression or more anger. That's something that I'm just throwing out there for you guys. But people brought up John Jones. You brought him up earlier, but John Jones has this whole situation with his wife where I could be wrong, but correct me if I'm wrong. He got domestically violent.
Domestic abuse
Yeah.
thing in Las Vegas.
Yeah. So people are kind of connecting all these fighters that are fighting like their spouse or significant other, whatever the case might be, and saying that it's the sport that's driving people there. It's them getting used to like the violence and the aggression is what's making them turn into these people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the same side of the argument can happen. Like maybe they're those people because testosterone brings them there, or maybe just because they're famous and now we're looking at a very specific niche of what's going on in society. We're only looking at those cases. So I want to pick at your heads and see what you guys think of those claims or those thoughts.
I'll give some. First off, John Jones. I'm glad you brought him up. He's guy's been my favorite fighter since I began watching UFC. I know that he has that background. People when I tell people I'm a John Jones fan, like, oh, that guy's a piece of shit. Like, like he ran a pregnant woman over in his car, was doing drugs and this and that or whatever. But that guy was in his early 20s when he started getting under the spotlight. I think he's the youngest UFC champion at 23 years old.
A lot of money.
I'm telling you, you put any young person in a spotlight like that at that age and in the right circumstance with lots of money. I hate to say it, but I don't even know. Like I might not look like the best person in the world either if they had a spotlight. Like if I was covered by the media like that, then I'd probably be labeled as a bad person too. And you can even take a look at Dana White though, because he got similar issues apparently with domestically abusing his wife. Like it was shot on footage. Now, I wasn't there, and like I said, just people when they asked me, I'm like, I don't know the full spectrum of this circumstance. Did he domestically abuse his wife, or was it like just a misunderstanding? I guess we'll never know unless...
Because it didn't really affect his career as far as I can tell. He still fights, he's still out there, so it doesn't seem that what the media was maybe not blowing out of proportion, maybe it is the right amount of proportion, but it didn't seem to have that far ahead legal ramifications on his life. So it to me at least, it seemed like it was just a story that's trying to fill in the gaps or a trend that was going on rather than address a real issue. But that's, again, just based on the evidence that I can see.
And last fight John Jones had with Kamaru Usman.
Srogan.
Oh yeah, I bet $60 against John Jones. I lost it all, my friend at work. So I bet $60. It was in Bitcoin, right? And I was like, I transferred my Bitcoin pretty quick, and I was like,
bet in Bitcoin.
Yeah, because I had my account for so long, I just never bet on it, and I had like some Dogecoin back 2 years ago. I didn't even know because when I signed in.
Sorry, how is that company doing, by the way? Sorry, is it Dogecoin or Dodge or whatever it's called?
Dogecoin, yeah.
Is it even still around? Is that a thing? Because I know it took off.
Elon Musk,
It did take off, but now it's like 0.01. It's like pretty down low. It's not even that good now.
I put $100 when it was like middle. Now I have like $2.
Was that part of that group of people who are all like doing speed and having sex in those hotel rooms in South America? Is that like part of that company? What company was that?
I'm not sure.
You guys hear about those guys?
There was another company recently got bankrupt. That was FTX.
Yeah,
it was like this nerd guy who was collecting money from everybody, and then it was like $20 billion, and he just said, "Oh."
Was that the stadium guy and like he donates to all like the senators and stuff in the States? Is that the same guy?
Yeah.
See,
Okay,
that's the thing about
that's
what about cryptocurrency that I don't understand really. Like I understand what cryptocurrency is. I understand how it works. I understand the mathematics and the algorithms and all that fun stuff. But literally, it seems like every company out there that has a little bit of money can just make a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin wannabe, and it's like to me it looks like money laundering because it's all a stock game, right? You go at high, you sell, you buy it. You know what I mean? And
it is.
It's just a circulation of money.
It's the thing. It's like anything that's new, right? Bitcoin was here in 2011, 2012. It was like $1. Right now, it's like $38,000. So if someone bought Bitcoin back in 2011 for $1 each, now it could have been $38,000.
Oh,
right.
So look at that trajectory, right? But the thing is, it's new, right? And 98% of the cryptocurrency, it's gonna be nothing, right? It's only 1 or 2% that has actual value, and you have to find out because these government now they're bringing out digital currencies, right? So the fiat currency, it's in a few months or maybe a year or two, the fiat currency, the physical
like a bill. Yeah.
It won't be a thing in 2 years.
Yeah.
It'll be all digital. It'll be just numbers on the screen.
Yep.
That's about it. And then we don't know. It's too early to tell if any cryptocurrency is good or not. It's too early to tell. Yeah.
Isn't in China they want to put an expiry date on the currency?
Three months, I heard.
Okay.
So if you get paid, you have a specific amount of time to spend that money. You can't save it up, and that's the issue with all of that.
That sounds like a trap to keep
It
people
does,
kind of like
it does,
lower
yeah.
class. I've been reading a lot about like the crypto thing going on right now, and like some countries like I don't know if it was like Venezuela or Peru and like India and Japan or China. I think it was China. I think they're all working together now to work on something.
But you're talking about BRICS.
collectively.
BRICS. It's Brazil, India, Russia, Africa, and
Africa,
China.
yeah,
so
it's South Africa?
5. I think it's Africa as a whole because Zimbabwe has their own digital currency, and they're doing experiments on it. Wow. So they don't have their old Zimbabwean currency. Right now it's digital. And
cool.
And the president of Ecuador, I think, or El Salvador, I think, he's the one who's pushing Bitcoin. He was like, this is the next big thing. And he's giving away like $20 to every citizen.
Wow.
Something
And there's
like that.
only so many Bitcoins there actually can be in existence, if I'm not correct. Is that like how it works?
It's like
That's why it's like the
diminishing.
most.
It's like a diminishing system. So the way it works is like solving mathematical equations, and the less there is in the market, the more difficult the equations become. So it's harder to mine for those monies. It's a
Jeez.
Yeah, it's based on math versus based on gold, like your traditional currency. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have like those farms, and that's why your graphics cards are super expensive back in the day. Like it's all connected in a way.
Do you think, Kil, what do you think is the best, like people are talking about Bitcoin, they're talking about dollars, they're talking about different currencies. What do you think is the best way to help yourself and your family to save and preserve your money? Let's say I have $10,000, $15,000, like a regular person who
Like
has,
outside of the digital world.
yeah, because I don't know because there's like so many banks going bankrupt. Let's say if I had $10,000 in that Silicon Valley bank, and they just said we don't have your money anymore because they went bankrupt out of nowhere, right?
Buy gold or silver. Yeah, yes, the currency is moving away from the gold and silver definition, but still the value of the material doesn't change. So you can still buy gold and silver with your Bitcoin or with your currency.
Like if all this goes away, like and there's like some kind of like world crash where there's like like money's valueless. There's always like trade and barter. Yeah. Like we can go to each other. I could be a bunch of booze stocked up in my place. I have food. Have you guys ever heard of preppers?
Supplies or something. Yeah.
Like the prepping people that like they're like prepared for like the world collapse, and like they have like weapons stocked up, and they have like food and stuff. I used to be really into that stuff, like learning about it, and but there'll always be some type of currency, I believe, like for trade, and people will find a way. Like there has to be something. Right?
Has to be something, right? But then the thing is, who has the most power? Because they can influence what's gonna happen in like the physical or the economic world, right? Because all these big banks. So when you talk about Federal Reserve Bank, right?
Yeah.
It's a private equity. I don't think many people know this, but all those banks lend their money to the Federal Reserve, which is a private company or a private firm held by a bunch of corporate companies, right? So people who has like billions and trillions of dollars, they're the one who hold those Federal Reserves, right? Yeah. And with the fractional banking, let's say I am the bank and you gave me $10, give me $10, right?
Yeah.
I keep $3 in your account so that you can use it, and I take the $7, lend it to someone else with like 7% interest.
Trade it, yeah.
So I'm the one who's making money, but you're not allowed to do that. And also, depending on how much money I have, I can make $1 for each dollar. So if I took out $7 from your $10, I can make another $7. I can print my own money, which is illegal for a regular person.
Yeah.
But those private equities, private companies can make as many.
Yeah, because they invested in, and that's the whole problem. But they're investing your money, and the only trade-off that you're getting from that is that they're keeping your money safe. Is the argument back in the day when they were like when banks became a thing?
Yeah.
because obviously banks was not like when banks came to be and people were like, oh, we'll keep your money safe. People were like, okay, I got a Smith and Wesson, I'll keep my money safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was still that pushback, yeah. But obviously people started giving in because of all the advertisement that a bank gives, like credit and all that fun stuff. Now you really can't go around life without a bank account. You have to have a bank account, and you have to have some sort of money in it. Like you can't have a house, you can't have a mortgage, you can't have a car.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't really, and now less and less things accept cash. So if even you're like one old school, like you're just gonna have the basics in the bank and everything else you're gonna keep to yourself. With your job, you can't get paid in cash. You have to have a bank account for the money to fall in.
I guess so. Yeah, that's kind of that's actually considered like people take cash jobs under the table and stuff.
It's like
kind of
sketchy.
upon,
Yeah.
But that's like, so when the income tax came in, income tax they just made a decision. Oh, we'll just start charging because 100 years ago there was no income tax and society was running, and every country has some kind of authority who was like taking control and taking charge of who's gonna like all the laws and bills. There was someone who was making rules, and there was no interest rates, or there was no income taxes.
Yeah.
And about I think 80 years ago, some government, they were like, okay, well, we'll start charging people 5% of their income, and we'll take the 5%. And
I think, sorry to cut you off, but I believe one of the world wars was like one of the influencers behind of one of these taxes that you're talking about.
I think it was World War II, if I'm not wrong. So the government, U.S. government needed money, and they were like, what's the best way to make money? They're like, we'll ask the public, we'll ask 5% of the income of every individual person in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's how the income tax was introduced into the system. And now 40% of what I make is gone to the government. 40%, that's like having a partnership. So
It's like having a bad divorce.
I didn't ask for this partnership, and government's like, no, we are in partnership. You have to give. You have to. It's like you said, bad divorce. The woman, the wife is like, yeah, I need your 50% of your income.
Right.
I deserve it. Like, I don't think so.
I always wondered that. Like you hear we pay all these taxes, and I see like all these MPs and stuff getting like $5,000 raises or whatever's going on with like Justin Trudeau, and like I don't know, like
It's like where's the translation of that? Like, yeah, sure, you're getting paid that much, but where? I mean,
have you looked at a road lately, my friend?
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, where's the translation? Like, I'm paying all of this, taxes are going up. Like, where's the? It's a one-way street. Like, it's a bad marriage, bro.
It is a bad marriage. It's a one-way street, man.
Used and abused here.
But it's a means of control. Like, at the end of the day, the whole bank, the whole system, all of that is made that you're not free with your money. You have to be controlled to a certain extent. Yeah. Anything, even if you like, let's say you're saving up cash on the side, and it gets to a certain number, which is over $10,000, and then you go to the bank and you deposit it. You have to bring a reason, like, where did this money come from? And if you don't, you get in a lot of trouble. And it's not just taxes, but in general, like people start suspecting you. You go on a list, and I know this because I worked at a casino.
Yeah.
Like you have to have certifications, if anything over $10,000, where it come from. Otherwise, like I said, you can't spend that money. You can spend it on gas, I guess, but it's not. You can't use that money towards something like buying a car or a house. You can't put that money in.
Yeah.
So many rules, man.
It is, and that's what I mean. Like, it's all a sense of control, and it's all a sense of putting things in perspective, and that's the only reason why I think digital currency is kind of moving in the good way, but at the same time, it's also whoever runs, like Bitcoin, for example, it's not monitored. It's just out there in the system. But if you start having government-issued cryptocurrencies...
Kind of levels the playing field, do you not think? Because, like, if you look at, like, everything's been, like, compared against, like, we were talking about this earlier, about, like, the U.S. dollar. Mm-hmm. Like, the U.S. dollar is the currency. Mm-hmm. Now that Bitcoin has come along, it's kind of, like, you can kind of push that over, and it gives, like, all countries, a level playing field of this Bitcoin now. I don't know if that's kind of, like, what it does, but, like...
But I was wondering more about, like, currencies or cryptocurrencies that are issued by a government. So it's controlled by a government. I feel like that has a higher level of control.
Yeah.
Because right now you can still get tips and stuff like that in cash. Like cash is still a part of your day-to-day life. I have cash on me right now.
Yeah, but do you think if cryptocurrencies wasn't a thing like 10 years ago, banks or government would never think about creating new digital currency. That's a means to have a competition. Because if I say I have a company, let's say I was the one who created Bitcoin, right? Yeah. So I'm the one who can or
set the playing field.
Dictates the terms, right?
Yeah.
But then banks are like, we can't have regular people control over the money, because money is the only thing that's holding us back, right? Money is the one, because we can't do anything without money. So
and it's good to have competition, so it's not monopolized. Like if it's only the government that's doing the cryptocurrency and not like Bitcoin, for example, where it's a little bit open to the field, you don't get that competition. That's when you're completely locked up. Mm-hmm. And I want to like shift this conversation a little bit, since we're talking about like virtual things, like NFTs as well is another big thing.
That's something I don't get.
I don't get it either, but hey, to each their own. But yeah, you have NFTs, which is digital art that you can keep, but you can screenshot from a distance. And it brings me to the metaverse. Like that's I think where everything is going. Like there's this other guy that on metaverse. They have names like. There's a multiple types
Decentraland and Metaverse.
I don't know. I'm not educated on this, but what I understand is like there are different virtual worlds out there.
Yeah. Okay.
And one guy wanted to be Snoop Dogg's neighbor. He wanted to be a neighbor to Snoop Dogg.
Oh.
So he paid $420,000 or something like that.
In the virtual world, or is this like in real life?
Real money.
Oh, okay.
He paid $400 and odd amount of $1,000 in real life money to be virtually a neighbor to Snoop Dogg. So Snoop Dogg had like a little plot of digital space, and he wanted to own one of the digital spaces that are around it. So he paid that X amount of money.
Wow. Holy fuck.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. Like how, because if somebody did that in real life, we're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, somebody wanted to be Snoop Dogg's neighbor. He paid $500,000. That's not that big of a deal.
What you're telling me is like I should make a virtual name Snoop Dogg and have some dude try to be my neighbor.
And that's the point. That's a perfect point to bring up here. Like we're getting so deep into that simulation world that it almost feels kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
But that brings up that whole simulation world into topic, and that's kind of the plate that I'm opening up here for everybody. Yeah. What do you guys think of that whole simulation, or are we in a simulation?
Maybe.
Oh, this actually reminds me. I have a video to show you guys. It's called the Lemon Girl Matrix Glitch.
Oh, you've been talking about this.
I talked about it a couple of times. I didn't want to say anything, but
so Lemon
Girl Matrix or Glitch Matrix. I know it sounds weird, but it'll be worth it. So here she talks about it.
Okay.
I'll show you the video first, and then I'll tell you what's going on.
Live in the metaverse.
So the craziest shit happened to me earlier. So, okay, there was a glitch in the system. I'm gonna show you guys a video, okay? So in this video, you can see me grabbing a lemon, right? I cut it in half, and then I cut it in half once more, right there. You can see me cut it, right? I go get a bag. Okay, I grab the bag. I go back for the lemon, and I grab the lemon, and I touch it, and I'm like, why is it not cut in half? In my face, I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like inspecting it. I take it out of the bag. I grab this lemon, trying to see if I cut that one. I recut the lemon because the lemon wasn't cut anymore. I'm freaking out because the lemon.
I've seen a video like that. Like of a car that just disappears on the highway. Have you ever seen that one?
I've seen a bunch of like. I watched this video. I used to watch these like ghost videos when I was like back in the. But then I saw this video the other day. So you can clearly see her cut the lemon. Like there's no way.
Did she, or was it beside it, or she just?
But she's holding the lemon like this.
Yeah.
And the knife goes in, and then she goes straight down. So even if it slid over, it would like at least nick her hand or something. She would know it.
It's stuck together.
On the video, that's what I thought. But she like plays with the lemon and stuff. I watched this video like 8 times, and I'm just throwing that on the table. Are we living in a simulation?
You know what? I think all this metaverse, all this like the Snoop Dogg buying a virtual house for like billions of dollars, and some ex guy bought a $500,000 house next to him.
Where does that money go?
On the computer, man. Like on the computer. That doesn't make any sense. But what I think is, it's just a distraction, right? Have you seen that movie Matrix?
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, right? The first one.
You're gonna wake up, man, and reality.
There's a thing down your face.
What would you do?
See, that's the thing, right? I think what's going on is like we're getting distracted that you can play these video games. And before the podcast, Mikhail and I, we were both talking. Let's say a company who has a virtual reality company, they're improving every day, and if they improve 1% every day, at some point, and this is Elon Musk's word, he said, if you improve 1% every day, it'll be hard to distinguish between actual reality and virtual reality, because all you need is 1% improvement every day, and in about 5, 10, 20, 100 years, you won't be able to recognize what's real and what's on the screen.
Right. Even some might be better than others, right? Like some people might want to spend more time in the virtual world.
And you see those guys with the VR on, and then they just fall and trip because they're playing the games, because their mind is in the game. Yeah. So they think and then when they jump off that cliff, they just fall on their TV or break the TV.
Have any of you tried a VR headset before?
No, man, no.
I'll bring it up next time I own a set.
Yeah.
And it does not look realistic. Like you're in the game. It doesn't. You understand that you're in a game. It's not like a part of your body's like, oh, I'm in a game. But when you're like zoned in, you believe that every part of what's going on is a part of you. If it's like everything is mapped properly, it's freaky. And the falling, that's just your brain's like, oh, I'm going down. Like it's the depth perception. Like it doesn't matter how well the graphics are. And that's another thing to bring up. Like maybe we are in a virtual world and the graphics might not even matter. Like to us, it's good because it's what we're used to.
Yeah. Exactly.
So to what point, like Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about this. He's talking about, okay, assuming simulation exists, which it does. We have virtual worlds and we have like computers that think they are alive and stuff like that. We have simulations. And that simulation, you prompt it or you code it to create another simulation. Yes, it will be of lower quality because the degrading effect, but the computer makes a computer to think that it's a computer that creates another, and so on and so forth. It keeps going, let's say 8 generations down. Yeah. And then he says, imagine we're printing all these universes or worlds down on a piece of paper, 1 to 8. And you grab a dart, and that's us. That dart is us. And you're like, I don't know which level I'm at. Am I the original or the end? I'm not sure. But you take the dart and you throw it in the air and it lands on one of these. There's a higher chance that we're not the first one, that we're a part of the second set of generations or downstream of those generations.
So you're saying the probability of us being in a simulation is more likely than being originals.
Yeah.
It's like I was.
But
talking,
again, a big assumption is that we believe that, or the assumption is that simulation exists.
Yeah, and it's like.
Ants, sit next to me, bro.
Ants don't know. Ants don't know humans exist, right? They only live in 2D. They just climb the wall. They just walk on the road and stuff, right? And we play with ants for like a minute or two. We get bored. We leave them alone, right? We don't on day to day. We don't think about ants, right?
No.
The same way we are in 3D, which is like the world we live in, and. Imagine there was a 4th dimension that aliens can get into, and they look at us, they play with us for a couple of minutes here and there, and then they're like, these guys are not as interesting as us, so we'll leave them alone. So there might be a better chance, like Mikhail said, that we are in a simulation and someone is running this shit.
Do we believe in aliens? That's a good question to ask. Yeah. Do you believe in aliens?
It's hard not to.
Do. I believe them.
How many galaxies are there? There's billions of them. There's like billions of Earth-like planets.
The numbers are like, it's hard to fathom. It's an estimate. Like you'll never find somebody that's into the universe that will tell you an exact number. They'll be like, oh, there's like trillions. There's a bunch of planets out there.
Stephen Hawking said it. It's like, I believe it was Stephen Hawking said that in more likelihood there is another
life form
out in the universe. And interesting, you were talking about the simulation things before. Do you guys ever visualize or like envision yourself 5 years down the road from now? Mm-hmm. The human mind is so complicated, and I think it is sort of like a machine of some sort. But I've always set goals for myself, and then I visualize myself reaching that goal. Like, for instance, like when I was a youngster, I always wanted a diesel truck. Mm-hmm. And then I imagined myself dreaming of that. And then now I own a diesel truck. I wanted a house. I visualized it.
You made it a reality.
Dreamed it, and it becomes reality. Like whatever, you ever heard that thing, anything's possible if you can just dream it and thoughts become things? Mm-hmm. that's the simulation I think that people are like of my life. I can simulate things to what I want if I just think about it hard enough. It's like the law of attraction. Just like I want something, you think about it, you get it.
Yes.
It's an interesting take. So you're talking about simulation of trajectory, like you're projecting your thoughts, your dreams, whatever you want for yourself.
Yeah.
And that simulation in your mind eventually comes true.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take. on
But
that.
there's a difference between just talking to yourself in the mind and then actually saying that I need a diesel truck, let's say in 10 years, and I'm gonna work for it, and then you actually do work for it, right? Because you can't be sitting in your room writing shit down. Oh, I need this, I need that, I need that, and then you go to bed again, right? You're like, you thought you need all this stuff, but you're not doing anything about it. And that's one thing about law of attraction is people say you can ask for anything in this world and then you can get it. That's not 100% true, because if you attach feelings, let's say you want to have a good physique, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, you imagine going to the gym every day, and then you make a plan. Oh, from 6 to 8 in the morning every day, 6 days a week, I'm gonna go to the gym, and this is what I'm gonna work out every day, right? And you work on it. You go to the gym for 6 months, about a year, for 5 years. Then you see the results.
Yeah.
Then you have the right to say. You can say, "Oh, I dreamt about it. I made the plan, and now I have it."
Yeah.
Right. Then there's some people out here they can say, "Oh, I can achieve anything," and then they don't do anything about it. And then they're like, "Oh, I guess it's not for me."
You got to put the work in too. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it doesn't just happen. If I wish for $1 million to show up on the table here, it's probably not going to happen. But
Yeah.
it'd be really fucking cool.
I feel like that's wishful thinking versus
Yeah,
projecting.
There's
but
difference. Yeah. There's difference.
It's very interesting, but life's pretty cool like that. Like if you really think about stuff long enough and hard enough and work for it, usually can work out for you.
It can work out, yeah. You just have to be conscious about what you want in life, right? Then you have to work on it. And then also, I think Elon Musk was talking about it. He was like, you can learn anything, you can have anything. You have to attach a meaning to it, right? Let's say if a thing is meaningless to you, you won't be thinking about it every day, all day. Let's say you need $1 million because your family is poor or your family is struggling. It's hard to put money on the table for your family, right? Now you have a purpose. Now you have a meaning that why do you need that money to make your life and your family's life comfortable? And then once you have that meaning embedded in your brain, everything you do, you have that thing in the back of the mind. I need $1 million. Why do I go to job? Oh, I need money. Why do I?
Why factor.
Family
Yeah,
eat, right?
exactly. There has to be a why. You can't be just doing stuff just because you want to do. If there's a meaning behind it, it's easier and it's more probable that you can achieve that thing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's gonna take a second.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll
Well,
come back in and jump in.
yeah. No worries.
We'll pause it.
Yeah.
Welcome back, boys.
Sorry, I had to take a real serious leak there.
The beers were going through us. We all had to take a little pee break here. Just to bring it back to what we were talking about, we were talking about simulation and whether we're in one or not, or what the universe is, or what has. And then we talked about aliens. If we believe in aliens, I'm a firm believer that there is something out there. Like, you can't tell me that this whole space is just occupied by us. That's very limited. Another thing is, if we do believe in aliens or things that can exist in a higher dimension, or has, like you were saying, a perspective between us and the ant, do you think that maybe that's what God is? Maybe God is just a being that is in a higher dimension, which is us to the ant.
Are we the aliens? Like, do you guys ever think that maybe like we came to this planet with all the animals that's living in harmony? And then humans just go from planet to planet, just destroying everything and like turning it all to shit and poisoning the rivers and killing all the buffalo. Or maybe like, you know, like there was actual like native people were native to this land, and then like, for instance, like white folks just came from outer space like me and started stealing everything and killing
the
everybody.
Same translation, yeah.
Like, who knows? Maybe we're like hybrid of like some kind of alien race that came here and started breeding with.
Yeah.
Well, Neanderthals, I don't know if you guys know much about the Neanderthals. But Neanderthals, that was a different type of... So we all have a common ancestor.
Yeah.
And Neanderthals came out, and then the Homo sapiens came out.
Yeah.
So they're technically different type of human.
Like
but
bigger foreheads, bigger jaw.
Yeah. They look different. They look like a stereotypical caveman. So if you Google a caveman and Neanderthal, they're basically much the same thing. But a Neanderthal, that's how they went out of existence. We breeded with them because it was compatible. We literally fucked them out of existence.
You know what's interesting? I did a DNA test, and like I'm a kind of like a hairy dude, and like yeah, I'm like evidence that maybe at one point we were half gorilla.
Right.
And it said I'm 60% more Neanderthal than other users on the program.
Geez. Wow.
And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? Like, I didn't even know anything about this.
What were you? 60% what?
60% more Neanderthal than the average user on the site.
But just to put things in perspective, like the highest percentage is like 3%.
Yeah.
Which is in certain places.
I'll show
in the
you guys
world.
later.
But
I'll
yeah,
bring the profile
60%, so you're like 6%.
It's whatever is going
Not
on.
more.
Makes sense.
Neanderthal. But yeah, Neanderthals, we literally fucked them out of existence. We literally took all the resources, we took everything.
Yeah.
Just
we were more
humans
sexually
evolved, right?
active, yeah.
Like just the evolution of human beings.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kind of push out the weaker. Like,
We just breeded faster too. It was because they were smarter than us.
Yeah.
oh,
So you have more smart genes in you. So I hope so. But they were smarter creatures than us, like technology-wise. Not necessarily that they functioned better.
Yeah.
But because they were an older species than we were, they had more technology. And we just showed up one day, this hairless monkey compared to them, and we're like, we're gonna bang you out of existence. And we
We're
did.
the aliens then.
that's what I'm saying.
Never thought about it, man.
And that's what I'm saying, like just to prove it.
You know, so when last asteroid hit the Earth, right? Before that,
11,000 years ago, whatever. Like
I think something like
Hunger
that.
Guy's theory, whatever it's called. Like,
So the scientist and the whoever collects data on like the old historical sites, they find out that the people back in the days before the asteroid hits, they don't have any evidence, or they have little to no evidence of writings, drawings, stuff like that, right? But then after the asteroids hit, the evidence of writings from different languages, let's say Egyptian language or some African country or like some Indian or some like, you know, all those.
Like old cultures.
cave drawings. And
So after those asteroids hit 12,000 years ago, the writings and the drawings came to present.
Oh.
And they don't have any evidence before that. And the theory is something happened after those asteroids hit. And I think you might be right, man. It was us who landed on this planet.
Or you're like, this is ours now.
Yeah.
yeah, came and conquered.
Yeah, and maybe the religious aspect is us thinking of our like parental ancestors that dropped us off, and they're like, to us they're our gods because they're literally our
Would be
father
gods,
who
right?
art in heaven.
Could you imagine if like so we go right now, us three guys just travel back in time with this shit right here and like the cell phone.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure like if we went to like medieval times, man, and we pulled out one of those, they'd be hanging us from a fucking stake and burning us
We'll
to
be
death.
burned to
We'd be
death,
like
yeah.
the devil, man. That'd be like these
Take a
guys are
picture of a
nuts.
king and show it to him.
You could predict the weather 2 days in advance. That's a fucking like that's
Witchcraft.
black magic.
Witchcraft.
You're witchcraft. Like you're out, man. But
Yeah.
it would be quite the shock because like it's the technology. Like if some dude just flies off in a thing and we're smashing rocks together, making a fire, we're gonna be like, wow.
God. Yeah.
And I think it's all about perspective, right? Like back in the days, people didn't know all that stuff. Let's say, like you said, if we went back and told them we have these things called phones and you can call anybody, you can talk to anybody, right? They're like, no, that's not possible. That seems like something God made, right?
Yeah.
If you tell me that, not even that far away, if you tell me that 80 to 100 years ago, I would call you crazy.
You
Like,
tell
the
my-
phones are relatively new.
You tell my 3rd or 4th grade teacher that we're not gonna have calculators on our pockets all
Right.
the time, and they're gonna think you're nuts too, man.
Yeah.
But look at us now, right? Like who? Like
yeah.
it's just crazy how far things have come. Like,
Yeah,
where do you think
always
we're
overcome.
going in the future, too, man? Like, what do you think it's going to be like in another 50 years from now? Like, we're talking about simulations and stuff. That we were getting onto that. Like, I can't imagine what the future holds. Like, we might even be living on the moon or Mars by then.
Interstellar colonization. Yeah.
It's possible, but how does God translates, let's say 50 years from now? I don't think people like these days, it's the topic of God and like religions, it's not as popular as
It's more on the superstitious side.
as 20, 30 years ago. But my personal is like I still believe in some godlike powers, some like all those religious books talk about how to live your life. I still believe in those, and I don't know if many people do or not. What do you think, Joy? What do you think, Mikhail? What do you guys think about this?
A higher dimension, if we're talking pure, and it's interesting because you brought the back in time thing, because we're third dimensional creatures. We can manipulate the third dimension. We can move a cup from here to there, but we experience the fourth dimension, which is time. We passively experience it. We can't control it in any shape or form. But if we're going to take that ant to human analogy and put us to a god, maybe it's a creature that can manipulate the fourth dimension and experience the fifth. At that point, is it really that weird to see that a godlike creature, that time to it is irrelevant? Have you watched the movie Arrival?
Yes.
No.
It's a good movie. You should talk about it. It talks about this like species of aliens that to them time is like a circle rather than linear like to us. So they die and they're dead and are born at the same time because time is irrelevant.
Wow.
So to them events are happening but had happened. It's very cool. You should watch it.
Deja vu.
Exactly.
Like, have you ever like done something? You're like, I've done this before.
Oh yeah.
I was
strong dude.
I was thinking about that 30 minutes ago when we were talking about something else, and that thing is interesting, man. Like sometimes you keep doing something, and while you're doing it, you're like, I'm pretty sure I've done this before, like the same course of action, like the same thing. Yeah. I peed, I washed my hands,
like sequence of
flushed
events.
the toilet,
and
like you feel like I've done that before, and you just get weirded out about it. Right?
But that's what I mean. What if this is like just us either peeking into the fourth dimensions as creatures, or another creature that's kind of into that cyclical thing, and we're just like, oh, that's God to us because they can show us telephones 1,000 years ago.
But the topic about God is, I think, all the religious books, what they talk about is how to live your life in this world, right? Yeah. What are the basic principles of let's take
Ten Commandments, like
don't kill,
Bible.
don't steal.
I'm not sure about the Quran. I'm not really familiar with it or anything.
The Christian or the Bible and the Hindus book or the Quran, all they talk about is don't steal from people, don't hurt anybody, don't live a life where you're not reaching your fullest potential, right? All the books are based about 90% or maybe 100%. They talk about the similar topics.
Yeah.
So when the religions are different, but they preach to almost the same thing, you have to think that they might be preaching to the one God, right? Yeah. All like Christian or Hindu or Muslim, there might be just one God, but they have different translations because of the language, right? Language might be the barrier.
I like that.
Right? Yeah.
I always thought everyone misconceived like one. It was like almost a very similar story.
Yeah.
And everyone just saw one God, but they perceived it. I saw, and then people just made their differences and bickered. But I do believe that like there may have just been one source. But then there's like those religions that have like multiple gods or whatever, which is like pretty interesting too. But they're still believing in a higher power. And for myself, have you ever like, something goes wrong? What's the first thing most people do? Oh God, help me, please.
Right. The prayer, the action of prayer.
Oh God, please.
It's such
help me, God.
Yeah, it's such an instinctive thing.
So I was watching this video. This guy was atheist, right? And the guy who was interviewing him, so like, why don't you believe in God, this and that? So he asked him a question, and the guy who's atheist got frustrated. He was like, oh my God. And then he looked at the interviewer. He was like, I thought you were atheist. And out of frustration, he said, oh my God. And so basically, he might still believe in God, but like it was his way of expressing it, man.
Well, it's interesting because also we were talking about this a while ago. If you're looking at our consciousness, like this is conscious, like this is right, this is wrong, like the belief. And in Christianity, it's the Holy Spirit. It kind of guides you to where things are. And you were telling me that. You tell me this.
So in Christian, they believe in a Holy Spirit, right? Mm-hmm. In Hinduism, so they say, I believe that God is everybody. Everybody has a God in them. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a couple of my friends. And so there was a God in Hinduism. It was called Lord Shiva. And when he died, it's a belief that his parts each of the parts were dropped into each person living on the earth, right? Okay. So some part of Lord or the God is in each person in this world.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, I think everybody is a God, but the thing is, it's the consciousness, like Mikhail said, the conscious decision you make. Is it a good thing if I hurt someone? Everybody, it doesn't matter what language or what country you're from, your soul or your mind or your consciousness will say, I don't think it's a good idea to hurt someone. And I think that's the voice of God. It's just that we don't, with this all distractions with the phones and like, we don't pay attention to the inner voice we have. if you start listening. And how do you listen to the inner voice? You have to put away all the distractions, right? Meditate.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to start meditating because you have 5 minutes.
Form of prayer.
Yeah, it's a form of prayer. You have 5 minutes in a bank line. You pull out your phone and start scrolling, watching TikToks and Instagram. You don't keep your mind idle, right? If you keep your mind idle, all the things you do in your day-to-day life, it's a time of reflection.
Yeah.
So if you have 5 minutes to sit by yourself and just your thoughts, it's a time of reflection. You reflect on what was that you did wrong or what you should do in the future.
Yeah.
It's just making plan with yourself, telling yourself, asking yourself, listening to that inner voice that what's right, what's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I believe in. I believe in an inner voice, and I think that's the God. And everybody in them has a God in them. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember, like I used to go to church a little bit with my mom, and I wasn't exactly like a religious kid growing up, but like my family was. Like most people were Christian or Baptist or whatever. And you learned a lot of good things in there, and I like that you were talking about earlier, like just basically like lead your life into good people. And even if like, you know, the way I looked at it, even if there wasn't anything, at least like people like felt that there was something, and it gave them like comfort. Like you have the comfort when you're even like in Rome. A lot of people converted to Christianity just on their deathbeds because they believed they could get into heaven. They wanted that comfort of knowing that they were going somewhere after they died. Yeah, but I do believe there is something, like even if it's a higher power, like alien, God, like I feel that there has to be some kind of spirit of some kind.
We were talking about DMT and how DMT flushes your
You ever
brain
done it?
before you die. No.
No.
I have not.
But I have a theory about DMT.
But it basically, like when they put people on DMT, they all experience similar things. They see similar visions or trip on the same thing or whatever.
Yeah.
So people are like, the conversation is that DMT opens like a different world for you or whatever.
It's like a portal, I heard. Like some kind of like
exactly. So
interesting.
We were kind of talking about this earlier, but what if DMT kind of, if you're a person with like bad intentions and you went through life the wrong way, and then your brain right before you die floods you with DMT, that your consciousness gets a bad trip, and that's what you're left off with. Like you're just experiencing that bad trip over and over again, and to you that's your personal hell. But if you're a good person that lived life well and you believe that you're done well and you get that flush of DMT, you get that visions of elves or those geometric colors that can't be described, because that's in the Bible in Revelation when John, I think, when he went to the afterlife and saw paradise, he's like, it's geometries that can't be explained, and you can see that with the DMT experience. I've never done it myself, but I see a lot of correlation between the two.
Yeah, it has to be, right? Because the thing is, my theory is all the religious books are just a manual to how to live your life in this world.
Yeah.
Right.
And then death opens up a door to the next dimension. That's what I think. And Joe Rogan was talking about the experiment they're doing. So they're doing small drips, like small drops of DMT.
Like microdosing?
Microdosing to these specific people.
Is that stuff illegal?
Well, they're
That's
doing
a question
controlled.
I have.
They're doing controlled studies. Right?
And DMT is such a complicated thing. Like some forms of DMT is illegal, but some forms of it is not.
Same as not. I would.
And the reason why, and the only reason, the sole reason behind it is because it's a new chemical that hasn't been documented and stuff like that. Like it's a very like interesting world of DMT. I'm not very versed in it, but you can do it and not get in trouble if that's what you're.
Okay, that's what I'm kind of worried about, because like, you know, I don't want to go to jail or anything. It's like, you know, when I was a kid, like back in the day, like it's funny how things have become illegal, not illegal. Some person tells us what we can put in our body, what we can't. I remember hiding in the bushes, like smoke marijuana. And like when I was like probably like 14, 15 years old and having to run from the cops, blah, blah, blah. And like you feel like a bad guy for smoking a plant that grows in the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, and it was interesting, I was reading about like in BC how they decriminalized all these drugs. And like I was talking with some people, and I've always been like, it doesn't really go hand in hand with like some people's thoughts, but I'm all about decriminalization of drugs and getting clean sources to users. And it also opens up businesses. You can tax this stuff, right? Like if we're making money, why are we fighting a drug war?
Right.
Has been going on since
People are
1980,
doing
whatever.
it anyways. Yeah.
Billions of dollars, and it looks like to me they ain't winning that war, guys. If you look around, you walk downtown Edmonton,
Right.
like you see some fucking strange cats walking around there, like smoking meth or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
But there again, people have to be like alienated because like they want to use a drug,
You
but
put them through the system.
yeah,
And once you put them through the system, now you're hanging out with bad cats, and now you're in that whole gang situation. Now it's escalating things for sure.
Yeah. You see how like society dictates what's bad and what's not bad. Let's say,
well, 1930.
Yeah,
Or 1920,
you'd be shot
the
on the
liquor
spot.
prohibition
Yeah.
or whatever, like no alcohol.
Yeah.
But then people fought so hard, they're like, hey, I want this.
there's no benefit, like no health benefit to drinking beer or drinking alcohol. There's no 0% benefit.
Solely negative. Yeah.
Negative. There's like negative
yes.
benefits, right? And it was still legal back in the whenever they decriminalized that thing, because people were making moonshines, right?
Yeah.
Once people know, because people know how to grow drugs, right? There's a bunch of, because even back home, back in India, there were some drugs. It's called poppy flowers, right? And
Opium, yeah.
Opium, right? Yeah. So opium. So what back in the days, my grandparents or great grandparents did was the flower. They just crush it out
Chew on it
and
or-
they chew on it, right? It's called pheme, and you can just make like you can. So that white liquid substance that when
Yeah.
you cut the flower that comes out. So you store a bunch of it, and then slowly over time it becomes black, and that's what it's called pheme. And it's illegal, but it's a natural plant. You can drop some seeds on it,
Yeah.
and you can grow it at your home. But you can get arrested in my province where I'm
wow.
from. Yeah.
Jeez. I heard about a lady said during like when she was a child, she was from, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it's Holland. I don't know if like Poppy's grow out there or whatever, but she said she used to like go running through the poppy fields and they go.
Yeah, in Europe it's a big thing.
Fucked up.
I've heard a story in UK when immigration was a big thing, and lots of Indians, especially Punjabis, were going to UK. So they have a tradition of putting poppy flowers on the dead people or their on their graves.
Yeah.
And people were seeing all these poppy flowers getting stolen after a day, or not even a day. Like you keep in the evening, the next day it's gone, and then they find out, oh, this is a drug. So then they banned putting. Then they banned. Yeah. Then they banned putting poppy flowers on dead people because people were stealing them.
Wow. Speaking of natural, like you're talking about DMT, for example. DMT is purely natural as well. You can get it from different plants.
Was that ayahuasca? Is that kind of the
Yeah.
same deal,
So
or-
ayahuasca is a combination of two plants, and that's a wild story, actually, since we brought it up. So it's a mixture of those two plants. One plant, you consume it on its own, it does absolutely nothing.
Oh.
You consume the other plant, does absolutely nothing. I'm not very versed on the name of the chemicals right now, but when you mix them together and you consume it, one plant deactivates a certain enzyme in your stomach that when you take the other plant, it allows the absorption of DMT.
Oh.
So the one plant has the DMT, the other one has the activation. And this combination of medicine or plants was made in the Amazon tribe. And I don't know if you guys looked at the Amazon, there's a lot of goddamn plants there.
Yeah.
But somehow
Never been.
it's one of the most populated forests in the world, like the Amazonian forests.
Oh.
And somehow they picked the two right plants, mixed them together, and ate it. And it's bizarre. And the way they said how they found this combination, like when you talk to the brides and the shamans there, the way they said that they got those combinations is that they smoked DMT, because you can smoke DMT, you can't ingest it unless it's in that combination that I said.
Wow. Okay.
They said the shamans would smoke the DMTs, and then they went to that dimension, and then they were given instructions by higher beings on how to pick those two plants and eat them together.
Oh.
So now a lot of the tribes, it's like a part of the ritual is to consume those two plants, but not smoke it, because smoking it is like a little bit more intense. So when you hear stuff like that, where they were able to find something so unique, and somebody did the math, and I can't remember the math, but it's very improbable that you can just randomly pick those two random leaves.
Kind of get hit by lightning.
Yeah, 3 times or 4 times. You know, it's insane based on how dense the Amazon is, right?
Yeah.
And people are saying the Amazon is like a man-cultivated garden. It's wild.
I heard that it was a big, like you talking about Joe Rogan earlier. I'm like an avid listener to his podcast, but like they were saying
good
that
stuff to hear.
they believe that there was like a large population there Europeans came, checked out all these cool cities and shit.
Yeah.
Came back like 100 years later, everybody's dead.
Yeah.
Because they got like, for instance, like how COVID spread, but everyone got like, I don't know, like smallpox or something.
Some form of disease, and they killed them all.
Wiped everybody out. And then
because
plants grow and everything.
Because it was in that dark soil or black soil or something like that.
It was a man-made soil.
Yeah, it's a man-made soil, and plants love it so much that when they came back like 10 years or not that long amount of time after, it got all overeaten by plants. And then they called the guy like a liar and stuff, and now we're using LiDARs and higher technologies to look through the bushes and the shrubbery, and we see civilizations under there. So the guy was not
pyramids and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You guys see that show on Netflix, like where they, like those dudes refined all these pyramids that were like predating like the ones in Egypt, and saying that like our race has, like the human race has been on Earth like prior to like when they thought, and like none of these dates make any sense, and it was pretty interesting. Did you guys watch that?
I know that if you connect all of these pyramids and stone structures, it will complete a perfect circle around the Earth.
Oh wow!
So it's like a funky thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's a
like
pyramid in
Stonehenge.
Mexico. There's one in Egypt.
Yeah. So if you connect,
There's some
all
in the
of
United
these,
States apparently. Like,
Yeah. If you connect all of these in a line, and you keep going in a line, it will feed back on itself.
So the theory about pyramids is the way they're aligned with the Earth's core and with the North and South Pole. It's considered that these were made to have energy source from them. So people used to drive. I don't know if they used to or if it's still a thing or not. But the reason they were made and the reason why they're aligned in a way is that they were used as the energy source. That's how they derived energy from those things.
wow.
Yeah, that's a wild one. I heard as well that it worked like a Tesla tower basically.
Okay.
You can stand up there with like a neon light bulb and it will light up because of how the energy is being collected.
Rocks can absorb
It's
a lot
pretty-
of heat and energy.
Yeah.
Like you can throw some rocks and like I remember my grandpa told me, like he was an old timer hunter guy. Put some rocks in the bottom of your sleeping bag, you'll be warm all night. So think about all that like energy that like that rock can hold. So maybe they're onto something there. Maybe it's like energy storage from the sun to this rock gives you.
I can't remember if I was talking to one of you guys, but we're talking about how we lost, like it's a lost technology, and that's something that Joe Rogan talks a lot about. Kind of giving Joe Rogan free interview, but
Of course.
we're putting on as well. But he talks about really interesting stuff. He says that how like a lot of people agree that we had this sophisticated technology that we lost, but we thought we didn't have when we were studying history, or we don't have an interest in figuring it out.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So wild stuff.
It is, yeah. And that's the thing, right? So all these, I think the thing with coming back to the God and the religion stuff is, with the DMT, is that, like Yusuf said, once you live, or once you leave this place, once you exit Earth, that's when the next chapter starts.
Right.
And I might change this maybe in 20 years, but this is what I believe now, is that because your body can't leave the Earth, right? Your body stays here. Your mind and your soul, or whatever you call that, unconscious or conscious mind, right? That's the one that stays. You know, when you were 5 or 6 years old, you stole something from your sister or from your siblings, or let's say I took $10 from my dad's pocket.
Yeah.
You still remember that.
Yep.
Even if nobody saw that, but in your heart, you know that you did a bad thing.
Yeah.
It stays with you forever, right? And so keeping that in mind, you have consciousness that have all the memories and all the thoughts of whatever you did on this earth. And then once you die, and this is not a conspiracy theory, once you die, the moment you die, DMT releases in your brain. The moment you die, DMT releases. That's why people say when you die, you get flashbacks of your whole life. But like you lived 70, 80 years, how is it possible that in 2 or 5 or 10 seconds you can see the whole life? Because the DMT is not bound with time, right? Because that's why when people have trips on DMT or mushrooms, they live like 3-4 months in this unknown world, and it's only like what
15 minutes.
Yeah, in 15 minutes they can live another 3 months of life in a different universe.
This guy tripped on DMT, and I think I'm referencing the story you're talking about. So this guy tripped on TMT online, so it was being streamed.
Oh, wow.
And DMT trips are 15 minutes, from what I understand.
It's like salvia.
Yeah, very short. But in his mind, he lived for 3 months. He had kids. He had a wife. He had a whole life going on, and he was just living it. And then he got pulled out of it, and you can see him when he was getting pulled out of it, and he was so disoriented because to him at that time, that was his real life. That's what he lived. He lived like that for 3 months.
That's frightening.
And then he was like snapped out of it. Yeah. He was disoriented, obviously acting like it's messed up, but it's a very interesting thing. And people like get high in different states and like they don't talk to each other, and then they see the same stuff. It's wild stuff, very poorly understood.
Yeah, when I was in high school, like salvia was super popular. Mm-hmm. I don't even know that stuff's like around anymore. I don't even know if they make it, but I remember there's like the different power levels or whatever the hell it was. There was like 5 times, 10 times. There's like the 30. So I don't know, a bunch of my buddies and I went and grabbed like the most powerful one they had.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. So I went back to like my apartment and we were all smoking it. And the one guy literally like started tripping out and pissed his pants.
Jeez.
And then the one guy thought he could fly. And then literally what happened to me, everyone just has these different experiences, but I just like kind of leaned over a bit like this, and I'm like, "Hey, stop touching me! Stop pushing me!" And I looked around, and they're like, "Nobody's touching me."
But you felt.
And 10 minutes later, I was back to normal. Like it was just weird. It felt like then another time, it just felt like some like heavy like presence was pushing down on my shoulders, and it was making me like angry. And like I thought someone was pushing me and shoving me down, but I realized that I don't know, it was like some kind of presence. But then it just went away.
That's like that tapping into a different universe that you can't see with normal life. Right?
And that's the weird part. Like, it's very interesting. It's to say the least. Joe Rogan talks about this one a lot, like the jokers that flipped him off or whatever.
Oh yeah, I remember listening to that one.
Yeah,
like, he was like,
apparently a lot of people see that joker flipping them off.
Wow. So it was like some kind of coincidence that everyone's seeing the same thing. It's kind of strange.
It is. And there was this guy that also did a bunch of DMT, and he had this like girlfriend in his high state. Mm-hmm. She was like a purple chick or whatever. And then a buddy of
Avatar.
Yeah, it was weird. Like he talks about it, and he's like, okay, so a buddy of mine comes over, and I never spoke to him about my trips because I didn't want to influence him. I didn't say anything, and it's his first time smoking DMT. So he smokes DMT with him. And the guy goes high, so the other guy's sober to make sure everything goes well.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So the new guy that experienced the DMT, he comes back and he's like, oh, I experienced the weirdest thing. There was this purple chick that told me to say hi to you. So, and listen, that's his story. Whether it's made up for views or not, I don't know, but at least if we're taking what he said to be true, and based on all the other people that say that they see the same stuff, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
It's definitely interesting, man. Like we don't know the whole story of DMT and drugs and how they influence our minds. We're still learning all that stuff, right? Even weed, right? It's totally different drugs, and we don't have enough knowledge or we don't have enough information on how they affect us in the long run, right?
It's probably not good. I know some people like love smoking weed, like myself, and then there's some people that I guess like they have like schizophrenic tendencies or like some kind of like it can trigger some people. And like I heard it, like I remember like reading a story in the news about some guy that smoked some weed and like killed some little girl with like scissors or something. And, it was actually here in Edmonton, which is kind of
know who you're talking
frightening.
About. Yeah.
But I was just like, damn, man, like. What kind of weed were you smoking, first of all? Because, like, I've never had that kind of experience, but, like, still, like, depending on what in someone's mind, you don't know, like, what's going to set them off. And that's kind of when I hear about drugs like that, DMT stuff. Like, honestly, it's like some person who has some kind of issues like that gets a hold of that stuff. And
right.
I don't know.
Should you be exposed to that drug?
Yeah, like, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, I'm all for decriminalizing. And, but then again, it's like some people should not drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, because you can have the nicest person in the world, they drink alcohol, then next thing you know, like, I've been to places where, like, the guy's trying to fight you for no reason.
Just start a fight everywhere, yeah.
It's like, what's your deal, man? Like,
we all have that one guy.
What reacts with some people's brains.
Exactly. You just choke him out, man.
necessary.
He just do the Kimura and fucking break his arm.
Yeah, gotta teach him a lesson, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, this was a pleasure, you guys.
Yeah, man.
Had a lot of fun. I've definitely enjoyed speaking on all wide spectrums of topics with you.
Yeah.
Mr. Joey, sir,
thank
I
you.
would love to have you over the podcast again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you guys
fun.
catch these fights coming up. We got a local guy fighting on the next UFC.
When is it?
I think it's, if I'm not mistaken,
What day is today? Sunday?
April 7th or 8th in Kansas City, or I might be off. Maybe if you have a chance to Google it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
We got a local guy fighting on that card. He fights here in the city, so you guys should check that out if you get a chance.
Very cool.
So it'd be Tanner Bozer, I believe.
Yeah.
There's a fight coming up.
I lost my $60 last time. I'm thinking. So I put my money right and lost it right, but this time I'm thinking because he said every time he sees UFC going on and he thinks which guy's gonna win, and almost every time he is right.
I have a good instinct, but I don't gamble.
No, but like
Yeah.
I'll gamble it for you. Just tell me who's gonna win, and then I'm thinking to get my $60 back, man.
Let's do it.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. Once again.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.